get an insight on how to prepare for a data analytics profile. I assure you that this event shall be full of exuberance and very enriching for everyone present here.
Let's meet our panelists for today's event. We have with us Mr. Ankan Biswas, who has bagged an internship at Fractal Analytics. Ankan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ankan Biswas. I am right now a fifth year undergraduate student, dual degree instrumentation and signal processing engineering. And right now I am doing my internship at.
Yeah, thank you, Ankan. Next, we have Mr. Tarun Majety, who has secured an internship at AB InBev. Tarun, I request you to please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, as you know, I'm Tarun Majety, and I'm currently a fourth year student pursuing my bachelor's in B.Tech. So yeah, hello all.
Yeah, thank you, Tarun. And finally, we have Mr. Vitthal Agrawal, who has bagged an internship at Amex. Vitthal, would you like to give our audience a brief introduction?
Hi everyone, my name is Vitthal. I've completed my 4 years in economics in the humanities and social sciences department. I'm pursuing an internship in the international commercial credit team at American Express.
Thank you, Vitthal. Thank you all for such a pleasant introduction. Let us now start our discussion.
Yeah. So, with a lot of good opportunities out there, there is also uncertainty among the aspirants in choosing companies. This being one of the most important and difficult decisions to be made at the time of internship, I would like to ask the panelists to give their ideas on how to sort the companies. Tarun, would you like to begin?
Yeah, so in my opinion, what I've done was like I went to the PPIs and all the presentations which they have done initially, and I spoke to my seniors. And the different companies have different values. You match values of different companies. For example, in AB and Bev, we really did not. They wanted people who wanted to be a bit more chill. Like we don't need to wear shirts to the office. They are very good to us. We directly are in communication with our super seniors, like managers, etc. It depends on company to company. While a few, and they wanted a person who is independent. So different firms, a few firms require people who work in in team projects, etc. So what I did was I spoke to different people who are working in these companies, their presentations, what their values are. It is very easy to pick which company you want to pursue once you are very clear about what their values are and how the work is over there. It just you just know what matches your vibe and what matches what you're trying to pursue. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Tarun. Vittal, would you like to go next?
I think Tarun covered it really nicely, but we can also talk to seniors regarding the learning curves at different uh, companies as well, and you can know about the work culture as rightly mentioned by Tarun. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, Vittal. Ankan, please share your insights.
Yeah, what I'd like to say and what I personally did was, so what was most important for me was to work in this domain regarding data analytics or ML, whatever you call it. So if you look at this company, so there are different ones which work in slightly different ways. So one, like the other panelists already said, there is a difference in the culture. Like some like startups are more chilled out, and some the top these Wall Street type of companies, they are very formal and stuff. But apart from that, also maybe companies like Amex or JPMC, they are more to the fintech side, and there you will be working only on one side of the AI industry. While maybe at some others like BTB or Fractal, these are companies which provide AI solutions to other companies. And so in essence, they are working on AI domain, but covering a lot of areas, including healthcare, FMCG, and all these things. So it mostly depends on what you really want to do in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Ankan.
Yeah. To get our basics right, I would kindly request the panelists to throw some light on the general selection process of the companies. Vittal, would you like to start?
For most of the companies, they send their descriptions on ERP where you can apply, and once you apply, you can give some tests, and if you do well in the test, you are shortlisted. After the shortlisting process, you can prepare for the company, you can prepare for the role, you can also study more about the company in detail. That also helps you in the interview process as well. And yeah, there is an interview process. So there's most in general there is a technical round and an HR round. So yeah, that is pretty much it.
Yeah. Thank you, Vitthal. Ankan, would you like to go next? Ankan, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the most common type of the selection pattern is what already he covered. So that is like the online test and then interview rounds. Apart from that, there are two other ways, but in lesser frequency. So one is direct CV shortlisting. People directly see your CV and there are like online tests and straightforward like 10 to 15 people are selected for the interview. And strictly in case of analytics, there are hardly maybe two, three companies, but they give you a problem statement of sort, and you are given time of 2 to 3 days where you have to solve like a simple forecasting or classification problem. And then you submit it, and it's like more of a typical, Kaggle challenge of sorts. And based on that, the subsequent interview rounds are similar.
Yeah. Thank you, Ankan. Tarun, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so both the panelists covered it really well, but I would like to add because AV and Bev has a different process compared to the regular analytics firms. For example, I had after the CV shortlisting and everything, we had a test. Basically, we had a test in which we had a few basic coding questions and a few math questions. After that, we had an interview round. We didn't have a technical round per se, but we had an group discussion from which we got shortlisted for interviews, and the interviews were not really technical. It depends on person to person. Mine was not technical because I preferred to.
Okay, seems like there is some issue with Tarun. Let us continue with our discussion. Now, moving on, among lakhs of applicants who seek internships at a company, a good CV makes a great first impression and one stands out. I would like to hear from the panelists what makes a quintessential resume to ace the interview. Ankan, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. So I think for this particular profile is one of those where the CV really does matter a lot, in the sense that not things like POR or extracurriculars, but purely your work experience in the sense of past internships or research projects or stuff like that, or even competitions you have taken part in. They really do leave an impact. So that definitely does give you an advantage, not only because it makes your CV look better, but also once you progress to the interview round, so it gives the interviewer a lot to discuss about with you. So for my case, most of the interviews would dwell around the CV building and whatever project I did, kind of explaining things. And if even if you haven't done much of it yet, it's still okay. I mean, you can still ace it. But yeah, these are, I think having this will give a positive impact compared to someone who doesn't.
That, that's really insightful, Ankan. Tarun, would you like to add something? Okay, so we'll go ahead with Vittal. Vittal, I would like to hear from you.
So some other general ideas regarding regarding what you mentioned in your CV is that, like, so you can obviously mention about the algorithms and the different processes that you've used, and also you can talk about the impacts that you've created by using a particular method. Uh, Also, you can. So sometimes what happens is that when you make these CVs, so it might become like too technical. So I'm not. So what I mean to say is that you can try to explain something which can be easily understood when someone reads about what you mentioned in your CV. So that is one tip that you can try to do. That is one thing I'd like to add.
Okay. Uh, Tarun, is your mic good now?
You're muted, Tarun.
You're muted, Tarun.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, now is it working?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Great. Yeah. So I actually could not listen to what other panelists mentioned, but yeah, importantly, what I think is the most important part of an good analytics profile CV is having a good number of projects and internships in your CV. That's most important. They're given the highest weightage along with your skills. So you should be very specific about what your skills are and what you worked on. and try not. I would say not try not to be too specific about it. Those details will be usually sorted out in the interview, but then also you have to mention all the work you've done, what impacts you've done in your job, and etc. And if you do not have enough interns and projects, I think filling it with the other projects which you've done through courses, etc., are good enough. And as long as they have some impact on what you've learned and what you know. So yeah, anything which you've written in your CV most probably will be asked in your interview. So yes, you should have basically have know what you're writing, and everything you can put it in your CV.
Thank you, Tarun. That was really insightful.
Yeah. Now, what are the last moments preparation strategies and how to revise all the concepts effectively? Tarun, would you like to begin? Yeah, you're muted, Tarun. No, you're muted still. Like, okay, I guess he's have some technical issue. Ankan, would you like to answer this?
Yes, so I mean, one of the key preparations for a data analytics profile is need to know coding. So it will be almost similar to what one would prepare for a software profile as well. But apart from that, so last moment, some of the things that are frequently asked in these online tests or even interviews at times are these puzzles related to probability and statistics. So a quick roundup of that would be really helpful, and just before a few days before the interview or the test. So you can refer to sources like Heard on the Street, Brainsteller, 50 Challenging Problems and Probability. These three are like really good sources which people have been referring to for years and they still hold true. And apart from that, I would also advise to just practice a few logical reasoning and quick arithmetic questions, because I mean those are not something that an IITian won't be able to answer, but doing that in the time, maybe like 30 questions in 30 minutes, can be challenging without practice. So that would help as well, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Ankan. Vitthal, please give us your insights.
So talking about the last moment, if I take last moment just before my interviews, so before that I really went thoroughly through my CV and picked up the algorithms that I've mentioned over in my CV, and also not only did I study those algorithms in good detail, also I'll suggest you that you can also try to come up with questions which the interviewer can ask you related to what you've mentioned, and prepare that really thoroughly so that you become much more confident about what you mentioned, and also you can take that confidence with you in the interview. So that is what I'd suggest you to do in the last moments, because that will also help you to build a lot of confidence.
That's really helpful. Tarun, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I'm sorry about the technical difficulties first one, and
It's fine.
also yeah. I think both the panelists covered it really well. So what I did was I would recommend creating a schedule in which you should go with your training phase. The most important parts are that you are able to code well enough. You don't need an SD level coding, but knowing decent level of coding is very important. Also, prop stats, that's very important, and puzzles. The sources I mentioned before, Brainsteller, Heard on the Street, these websites are very good for those, and they should cover it very well. Also, one thing which the other panelists mentioned, with I think that know exactly what you wrote in your CV, all the algorithms and everything, because data is a vast field and you can't know everything. But you should know exactly what you worked on, the courses which you've done, the projects which you worked on. That data, that knowledge should be very clear. And most of the internships, they usually give a phase before, they give some time before your internship starts, or a week after your internship starts, to know exactly what the processes are, like what the algorithms and what different softwares they use in your internship before itself. So it is more important that you have basic knowledge, and your basic knowledge is very strong. Those foundations are very important, that you cover all of them.
That was really great. Thank you so much, Tarun.
Okay, proceeding with our discussion, acing the interviews is the most prominent step to get selected for an internship. So I would like a panelist to give a word of advice to excel the interviews. Vittal, would you like to begin?
So yeah, one thing is obviously, which I mentioned previously, that preparing and going through your CV thoroughly. That is point number one. Point number two, your introduction. It is really important because you can mention some things in your introduction that you want the interviewer to take note of, so that you can have some conversation related to that topic later in the interview. That is point number two. And also you need to have this idea that good interviewers don't just make the interview about themselves. They also let you take the interview in your direction as well. So you have that. You need to know that, and you need to take advantage of that as well, so that you can also talk about things you want to talk about with the interviewer. So that is an important skill to have, and yeah, I think that is what I think.
Thank you, Vittal. Tarun, please go next.
Yeah, exactly what Vittal said, to be fair. You should know the art of making sure the interviewer asks the question which you want him to, and steering the direct conversation in the direction you want to. Like, most important points would be like, while answering a question, you should make sure that you are giving some information which you haven't given, so that he takes note of it and asks that questions, and so on. That is one way to do it. And other thing is, one thing which I did was, and which was very effective, was there are basic questions which an interviewer asks. First, he asks you to introduce yourself. He asks what your hobbies are, and then sometimes the conversations in the interviews can be very random. Like, my interviewer spoke a lot about, for example, I work in AB and Web, so we spoke about beer for 15-20 minutes, and then we spoke about my cell activities for about 15-20 minutes. My technical part was only for like 7-8 minutes itself. So the conversations are very random. It can be about your hobbies, it can be your interests, it can be your past internships, some other experiences. So the fact it is that whatever you write in your CV and whatever you tell over there, right, it should not be out of something you already know, or something out of what you've prepared. So it's very important to make sure that you have written the answers to basic questions and practice them beforehand itself. Like, I've written my introduction, strengths, weaknesses, about my PORs. What should I tell about if someone asks me to explain my internship? What all I've done over there? What's my impact and everything? These kind of questions are, pretty much going to be there. One few of them. Okay, if you make like a list of 40 questions, 10 or 15 of them are going to be asked somewhere or the other place. If not in one interview, the other. So it is very important that you make sure that you have the answers to this, and you don't watch the basic questions which they ask. Difficult questions take some time. You can always take some time and answer them, but you should know what you're answering. You should have it structured, and let's say it is more important to take some time and answer it better rather than just blabbering the first thing which comes out of your mind. So yeah, that's mine.
Okay. Thank you, Tarun. Ankan, please share your experience.
So I'd say the first and most important thing is to be confident and not nervous at all. Uh, that really shows your first impression, and that's really important. And also, I mean, introduction must be prepared by heart. So, and it shouldn't be just about who you are, your name and department, all those things. Make it somewhat creative and add info, whatever. And after that, I'd say that two sorts of interviews usually happen. Sometimes they can be merged, but usually it's a tech round and an HR round. So for the tech round, you can be prepared for things like props, stats, puzzles, and mostly your CV really. So let's. So what I mostly face for people asking me to maybe explain a particular project or any internship that I did. So you have to treat, the interviewer just like a business client of sorts, someone who is like totally unaware of what you did. So you can just, start explaining from the very basic what the problem statement was, what the data looked like, what preprocessing you did. So, it's just like giving a presentation of sorts to that interviewer. And in between only, he will catch you up on some points and ask you why you did that, why not this, what all you faced during it, what you learned during it. That is a very important outcome, because you are expected to take some learning curve from everything that you're working on. And after that, if we're talking about the HR side, so that is something a lot of people neglect. Even I did for a few times. It was a mistake. So you should be prepared for a lot of questions, but those are like again very predictable ones, like your hobbies, strength, weakness, and also situational questions, like give an example of a scenario where you did this, where you showed this quality. So being prepared with this only makes you confident, and you can like you can be honest actually. So maybe if you have a particular POR in something, managing event or whatever, so you can give an example of that to cite an instance of something, and that is already reflected in your CV. So it shows that you're honest as well. and it's just about being spontaneous as well. So I was asked a question about why I like working in a team of sorts or whatever. So it just randomly came in my mind, and I said that like decision trees. So it always helps to have the opinion of others as well, and you are guided to the right direction, taking the books of others as well. So yeah, that's
That was really insightful, Ankan.
Yeah. Moving ahead, with a multitude of profiles available, how many do you think like should one aim and prepare for? Tarun, would you like to give your suggestion on this?
Yeah, so my opinion, so what I did was I tried to keep all my options open and I worked for as many profiles as I can. So for example, day one, I tried for LEK and then I tried coding and then I tried data. So I tried finance, for example, and all these profiles, I tried to keep as many open as possible, but I would suggest that that's not the best way to go about it. So I would think maximum of one or two profiles is a less. Like one thing which I've learned from an outside KGP especially is that seeing my seniors, trying to fit in is not more important, but doing exactly what you want is more important. So there are like a ton of opportunities. If not CDC, there are like a ton of opportunities outside too. So doing exactly what you want to do is more important than trying as many profiles as possible, because it's always easy to switch career paths, but it is very important to do what you want to do at that point of your life. So yeah, I think ideal answer would be one, but if you are really wanting to crack a CDC intern and everything, I would say two profiles which are famous are good enough. So yeah.
That was really insightful, Tarun. Thank you. Ankan, would you like to go next?
yeah. So it's mostly a personal choice, I would say. It really depends on you. So for myself, I was dead set that I really want to build a career in this field, and so I didn't go for others, not even software. Because I've always been really passionate about this. I've been doing this for a lot of time. And one thing that's an advantage of this profile is, you are already, kind of equipped to ace the software role as well, because you do the coding part. And if with that, you did some of the PPMS stuff, you are well prepared for that as well. But one thing I would also suggest is keep something in mind that if you really are not interested about something, it may be a wise choice to avoid that, because these things can be random at times, and I've seen people getting maybe a product management company day one to, while they really wanted to do something else, and because of the CDC rules you can't really reject the offer if you have only that option. So keep these things in mind as well. But yeah, it's mostly a personal choice, I would say, at the end of the day. Do what you like.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Ankan. Vitthal, would you like to add something on this?
So I think both the panelists have put up some really good points. Again, I'd say that it is a personal choice. It's a subjective thing. Personally, I went for analytics or data or ML profiles with finance profiles. So I wanted to work in either of these two things. But again, it's very subjective. If you are like Ankan said, he's always into analytics. So if you're that kind of a guy or girl and you want to work in a particular field, then try to remain focused, be it CDC or outside of CDC. And it's also good to have some other options as well. If you're not deep dived into a particular field, then it's also good to prepare for more than one role. But I think two roles is something, it's fine. Sometimes taking more roles, it also diverts your attention, so that can be a problem as well. But again, it at the end of the day, it really matter it the person you should be asking this question is yourself, and whether you'll be able to allocate sufficient time or not. And you are the right person to answer this question, I think.
That
That's it.
was really perceptive, Vitthal. Thank you so much.
We also received some questions through our registration form, so we'll take up some of those frequently asked questions. Categorizing the topics according to their weightage is the primary step to the preparation for an interview. What are the topics one should give most significance to? Tarun, what are your views?
So mine, I'll be honest, the role which ABNY provides is a bit different from other analytics profile companies. So mine, it wasn't more about probability statistics. It was more about how you present yourself as a person, because the role, more importantly, is about business analytics. It's about you being able to present yourself and discuss the problem statement, discuss what your opinions are and how you should solve and everything. So what ABNB wanted was a person who is more better presentation. But in general, I would say key the most important skills are coding, because that's the first thing you should get through while internship tests. And other is puzzles. These two are most important because you need them to pass your exams or like shortlisting tests. After that, your prop stats is also one very important topic. So I think these three, if you have covered, and other basics of ML, you should be fine.
Great, Tarun. Vittal, please give us your insights.
So I personally, I'll say that I first of all focus on the algorithms which I've mentioned on my CV, as I previously mentioned. So those algorithms I did like really well. Apart from that, I try to focus more on certain statistical concepts. And like, so I'm from economics and I do take several courses. We have several courses like econometrics, regression. So there's a lot of statistics that is involved, and I really try to go through them. And the reason I'm saying this because before CDC, I like the internship that I did. So I have been previously asked a lot of questions relating to statistics, because say for example there is deep learning. People won't really expect you to know everything about that topic, but they'll want you to have your bases covered. So that is where I focused. So I try to have a good base around statistics, statistical concepts, like concepts related to regression, logistic regression, etc. uh, Time series modeling, that was there. uh, and the basic ML algorithms, and again the algorithms which I've mentioned on my CV. So this way I divided it broadly into three areas, and accordingly I gave my allocated my time to these topics.
Thank you, Vittal. Ankan, would you like to make any additions?
Yeah, so just combining what both of them said, I think there are two aspects to any data analytics or ML related problem in the real world scenario. So one is you have to have a good grasp on these algorithms and stuff. You need to know the mathematics that works behind an algorithm, why it is working basically, and how it works. So because of to understand that, the backbone of it relies entirely on probability and statistics. So that is why so much we're emphasizing on these two topics. So for that I would say that the prop stats or prop stochastics course offered in KGP is good enough. And apart from that, you also need to have a human side to the problem statement as such, because it needs human intervention as well. Because when you're dealing with a problem, it's not just about applying algorithms and expecting them to do wonders, because you need insights about the domain. You need to do some domain research as well. So the human aspect is also very important. And of course coding is something that you need. So yeah, just focus on the conceptual part of these algorithms, like parameters behind this. If you alter some of these, what happens? Why choosing one algorithm over the other? Which is better suited for the kind of data, like big or small, tabular or these kind of things. And also maybe you can have a look at the time complexities as well. So knowing these things really stands out.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ankan.
Yeah. Moving ahead, for data or machine learning profiles is practicing data structures and algorithms and knowing the basics of machine learning algorithms sufficient. Vittal, would you like to enlighten us about this?
So I'd say, yeah, I think DSA is important, and yeah, basics of ML is again important. The other things that are required, like prop stats and different books related to puzzles and aptitude, like Heard in the Street 50, challenging problems and probability, and your brain stellar. I think these have been covered. So yeah, this covers it up pretty much. I don't think you need anything more apart from here. That's sufficient, more or less sufficient.
That
Apart from
was
this, I'd also like to say that I think adding to the previous question, you also need to have a good reason as to why you're doing something. Reason in the sense how your project will contribute to the company. So you'll have to first explain the interviewer the reason why you are doing, or what impact your what impact your model can have on the company. So that is also really important. Apart from this, for this question, I think yeah, it's pretty much sufficient.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vittal. That was very enlightening. Tarun, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so there's nothing that Vittal hasn't covered and the previous question hasn't covered actually. But yeah, just to sum it up, algorithms, DSA, and your puzzles, these are the most important, and prop stats, of course. So if you have knowledge of these four, it should be enough to like having knowledge of basically what ML algorithms do, the mathematical part of it, and the stat and what the different metrics mean in ML. You will have more or less the most of the knowledge over there itself. With that, a bit more of probability statistics, what everything means, that should be enough.
Yeah, that was really helpful, Tarun. Ankan, would you like to answer this question?
Nothing more to add, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So going further, what are the differences in the process for B.Tech and dual degree students, and how much will the interviewer be expecting from a B.Tech candidate? Ankan, would you like to start?
I don't really think there would be a difference because end of the day, when people are selected for that particular internship, more often than not, both B.Tech or dual degree students will be working on same or at least similar projects. So it doesn't really make much of a difference as to what your degree really is. There may be some differences in the CG cutoff or those sort of things, even based on department. But other than that, it's not really much of a difference. And if you are a 4 year B.Tech student, I don't think there's a lot to worry about in the sense that 5 year guys will know a lot more than me in 1 year. That is not really the case always. So that's not really something you need to worry about.
Okay, thank you, Ankan. Tarun, please give us your insights.
Yeah, so being a 4 year guy, I have a lot of experience in this topic. So basically, in data profile and SD profile, I don't think there's a lot of difference as Ankan has mentioned. But coming like in CDC in general, it is obvious that a 5 year person, like someone who's giving his internship in start of his 4th year, would have more knowledge about it. Like it's just a natural bias. It's nothing from the interview perspective. It is that you just have more time to do projects, more time to do internships, etc. It's as long as you have the same knowledge, you should be fine. But then the interviewer also is usually being a part of KGP culture itself or KGP alum. They'll have a bit of knowledge about how everything works, and they'll also be a bit mindful about it. But yeah, in data, it should not be. There is no bias actually between B.Tech and dual degree students. As long as you have the necessary skills and knowledge for it, they will also remember the fact that you're a bit you'll be a bit less you'll be a bit inexperienced, but yeah, there's not much of a bias against B.Tech students.
It was very informative, Tarun. Vittal, would you like to add something?
No, I don't think I want to add anything. Tarun, I think, was the right person to answer this question.
Okay, thank you, Vittal.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. How does having done a project or internship affect a candidate's internship for analytics profile? Tarun, would you like to start?
Yeah, so of course, having a project and internship means you have like necessary ground knowledge of how everything works. That is the best way to go about it. They carry the highest weightage. So PORs and all this don't affect the most in core analytics companies. Maybe a bit in business analytics companies they matter, but in core analytics companies, having projects and internships is the first priority. Apart from that, courses and everything they give you a knowledge. So it is very, there is a bit of a difference between real life projects and what you do in projects and what you do everything. So having projects and having internships is the first thing, and projects which work on real life data and etc are really helpful for analytics profiles. So yeah.
That's really nice. Thank you, Tarun. Vittal, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, they are really important. I don't think there's much to add. If you don't have a previous experience or an internship, then try to do something innovative or a self project. So that would definitely help if you're aiming to set for analytics profiles.
That was great. Thank you. Ankan, please share your views with us.
Yeah, so this is like definitely the most important part of your CV for any tech-oriented profile as such, not just data. And the best thing is that it gives you an opportunity to talk about something during your interview. So most of it, the discussion goes along that way as well. But even if you not have, I have seen like people who have got internships at good places as well. So in that case, you need to have a grasp on some of the key concepts and topics. And so the interviewer understands that you may not have had enough experience or whatever, but still if you are skilled enough, and the discussions will go as per your CV basically, but having this definitely helps.
Yeah. Thank you, Ankan.
Moving on, one possible scenario that one might find themselves in is not finishing their project by the time they need to submit their CV. In that case, should we mention about that in our CV? Vittal, please tell us how should we go about this?
So personally, I didn't encounter with something like this, but if there is a scenario like this, I probably think you can mention this on your CV if you're confident enough that you have already, or you would be able to do some good amount of work before your interview. Even if you're not able to complete, but you've done some good amount of work and you are able to have some conversation with the interviewer with about this project, I think that should be fine. You can also I think take the suggestion of the interviewer as to what changes you can make to your project, or what how you can improve anything. But overall, I don't think there should be a problem until and unless you've made some good progress, or you can make some progress by the time of the interview.
Thank you, Vittal. Ankan, then can you please go next?
Yeah, so it's not a problem at all, like he said. And I think it's really important that you do not lie in your CV as such. Be as much honest as possible, because the interviewers are really experienced people and they can catch you if you're flunking as such. So no need for that. If you have done some part of a work, it's good enough. And there are cases where you might be part of a team for only a short part of the time. Like I did a research internship at MIT, so that was going on for a year or something. I was a part of the team only for 2 months. So I only did a few things of the work, but that in itself was like pretty good work, I would say. So the people will definitely understand that. So focus on what you did and what impact you created. As long as that is satisfied, that's good enough.
That was very informative, Ankan. Tarun, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so two of I last summer I did three internships plus projects, and all three of them were not completed by the time I closed they closed the CV portal. So I mentioned that I was still doing it, so I just put the date from when I started it and present करके. So it is actually not a problem as long as you can show the proof that you started it, like the offer letter or whatever. And if in case you do not have enough points, for example, one of my internships started late, so I just wrote like three CA points about it. While the other internships, I wrote four or five. So it is, of course, you'll have a little bit knowledge about what you're going to be working on, what you'll be doing, what's the impact, possible impact, etc. So yeah, those things you can mention. And as when the interview starts and the interviewer starts asking about your CV and going through your CV, right? When you ask about your internship, you can mention the fact that you were doing an internship then, and now that it has completed, you have a bit more to tell about it and explain it in more detail. So it should not be a problem. And I've in fact done it, so it should never be a problem if you are doing a project and you mention that you're still continuing it. You should mention it in your CV.
Okay, Tarun, that clarifies our doubt. Um,
Yeah. In this technological era, there are many courses that are available online for the students. Could you please tell how important is it to mention them in your resume if one has done any online courses? Ankan, would you like to go first?
See, so these courses can be really good sources of knowledge for you as a part of your learning path. But as a part of the CV, I don't think they add a lot of value. These are like mostly filler sort of things which you can add if you don't have a lot to write about. And yeah, it's unlikely that interviewers will really look into that, because these are not difference makers, right? Literally everyone can do or have done multiple of these sorts. So not really value additions, but yeah, just mention two, three that you have done if you want.
That's wonderful, Ankan. Vittal, can I know your opinions on this?
Yeah, I share the same opinion. It's not really important. It does not really add a lot of value. But I did have some space on my CV, and I did mention online courses that I did, some of the online courses that I did. The only good thing about an online course on your resume, obviously it helps you gain some knowledge during the learning phase. But the only good thing that it provides on your CV is that it reflects that the person is willing to learn new things. So some interviewers might take that as in a positive way, but other than that, it's not really something that adds a lot of value on a CV. So
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vitthal. Tarun, would you like to add something?
Yeah, not much actually. To be fair, it's strictly fillers. I mean, if really required, I would say ki, in case the course is really good and you've done a really detailed project about it, like a few projects in Coursera, they take like it's 10-week courses and everything. They have a good amount of projects when it comes to deep learning and all this. Those kind of projects, if you really require, if you really have to fill space, you can mention them as a separate project, as a self project, but except that, I would say that they are more or less fillers. They're not really the most important thing. And this interviewer would probably not take a look on those things and not talk about those at all. So yeah.
Okay, that's great, Vitthal. Yeah. Now it's time that we take up some questions from the audience. So, audience, if any one of you has a question for the panelists, please put it in the chat box and we would take up from there. Audience, feel free to
But
post the
yeah,
question. Like,
I actually
yeah.
think the chat is not enabled. So
Sorry.
I don't think the chat is enabled. So
Okay, fine then. Yeah. Thank you for meaningful and very enlightening discussion. Panelists, are there some final words of advice you would all give to the CDC Janta at IIT Kharagpur? Ankan?
Yes, so I think it can be a pretty stressful phase at this point of time for a lot of people, most people in fact. So I think the most important part is to focus on yourself and not looking at what others are up to, because the more you look around, the more confused or stressed you will be. People will be doing a lot of things, saying a lot of things. So you don't really need to keep those in your head. Focus on yourself, your preparations. Be confident about what you have done. So that should be fine. And regarding, once the day one and two start, so, it can be a bit saddening to, maybe one of your dream companies, you had great expectations, but you couldn't get into it. So, yeah, part of life, just go along with the flow with these rejections. Be prepared for this. And honestly, there is a lot of, random things going on with this, on campus hiring, not just at KGP, but everywhere. That's the harsh reality. So you can have a brilliant test and not be shortlisted for one, and you may have a not so good test, but still ultimately get into the company. So these things will keep happening. Just it's like treat it more like a rehearsal for the placement, if at all. And if you get one, so that's really good. And just focus on yourself and believe in yourself. So the interviews or whatever test you're giving, these are all more of a benchmark about what sort of performance you yourself will understand, right? That how your preparations are at this point of time, which areas you need to improve on. So identify those and work on them, and it's a great learning path along the way, a brilliant journey to be a part of. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Tarun?
yeah, great insights from Ankan actually. Also, it's like, yeah, as he mentioned, it's a great learning curve this time when the time leading to CDC, when you're working hard, learning things, planning, etc. One thing I would say is that if you get an interview, if you anything, enjoy it. Don't get nervous, because there are like very few companies which come for CDC actually. Like there are much better and much more opportunities outside. So it's not the end of the world at all. So I've seen it. I've seen my friends and people are doing much better without a CDC intern. So yeah, don't fret it at all. And I would say ki enjoy the process. May treat an interviewer like a friend, a client, a manager, or whatever it is, and like basically like a senior. You should know the line and you should be really nice to them. It's very easy, the process, like as long as you're not nervous about it, and don't show that nervousness in front of your interviewer.
Yeah, that's really great. Vitthal?
Yeah, really nicely put by Ankan and Tarun. Just try to remain stress free. I know it's easier said than done. And yeah, just keep on putting the effort and make sure that you're learning new things every day. And that should be fine, and leave the rest up to luck. I think luck plays a very big role in CDC internships. And I think others would also agree on this. Yeah, that's pretty
I
much.
guess we have a question from one of the audience by Kumar Indramani Singh. Please give the insights on how can I work or do the real world projects. Would any of the panelists like to take up this question?
Can you repeat once?
Yeah, please give the insights on how can he work or do the real world projects.
I mean, the best way to do real life projects is to be doing it in some institute or some internship itself. It is not really possible to, get do real life projects without anyone who's backing you and who's giving you the data and who's giving you a direction to go with. Except that I think a few self projects can be done. I mean, I did a few on COVID, etc., on my own just for the sake of it, and a few competitions which use real life data. Except that I don't think there are much ways to do about it. I think the other panelists would be able to give some insight about that.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yes. So adding on to what you said, yeah, internships and at companies or universities really help, of course. But apart from that, these days there are a few scopes of that. So talking about KGP specifically, there are these inter-hall data analytics as well as the open IT things. So you can take part in those. Those are like pretty good data sets, good problem statements. And except that, so Kaggle is a pretty well-known site, but a challenge of that is it can be a bit difficult for beginners as such because it's not basic stuff most often. But also apart from that, there's this site I dare to compete, yeah, dare to compete, and on some other even these other IITs or other colleges, their business and analytics society or whatever, they sometimes hold these challenges. So you can take part in those, and even for us, KDAG is a like, good one. They hold one or two competitions annually. So just you can form a team, make 2 3 good friends who are also passionate about it, and just keep participating. It's not just about winning all the time, but each time you take part in some of this, you get to learn something. That's all that counts.
Yeah, for the
Okay.
fun day, thank you so much, panelists. We would definitely keep all those in mind.
Okay, so if the audience have any further doubts, they can raise their hands and we'll give them mic access. We'll wait for the audience to raise their hands. Okay, seems like there are no further doubts. Our panelists have already clarified most of the concepts. So we would like to end the meet now. So coming to the conclusion of the seminar, firstly, we would like to express our gratitude to our panelists, Ankan, Tarun, and Vitthal, for giving us the precious time and sharing all the valuable insights, strategies, and experience with us today. A word of gratitude to the audience for being so pleasant during the seminar. I hope the seminar was beneficial for all of you. This brings us to the end of today's event. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.